Calculations. In many software programs, we have calculations, especially now that we live in the big data area where we have plenty of data and we run on it offline jobs and also online jobs. Some of these calculations can run on the offline processes. They can take hours or days or minutes, and some of these calculations are unloaded into the online services. So let's say that we have the stock market and we run calculation on it and analysis and prediction, many sophisticated calculation on the stock market. Some of these calculations can fail, right? So let's say that we check and try to fetch all the stocks that we predict will rise over the next month. So we run a big calculation and then we have a list of 100 stocks that we have predicted that will rise over the next month. But the question is this: what happened if when we ran calculation for a certain specific stock, let's say a vacuum cleaner stock, then this calculation failed? What will happen to the resulting calculation, to the results of this stock? So one way would be not to include it, because we don't know the result of this vacuum cleaner stock results. Another way would be to include it with some strange numbers like -1 to denote an error. And another way, which is what I'm recommending here, is not only to include the results of the calculations, but also to include the status of the calculation. So for the whole calculation, which returns the whole stocks, the whole list of stocks that we predict would rise, we have a global status. So let's say that we return one big giant JSON document with all the calculations. So we have a status on the top that says, for all these calculations, the status is success. This means that everything went fine. We received all the calculations, everything finished. We can also have a status failure. We had a colossal complete failure. We just couldn't calculate it. But what happens when a specific stock fails to calculate? In this case, we have another kind of status. It's not going to be success. It's not going to be failure. It's going to be partial success. We can call it partial failure, but let's go with partial success. So when we see partial success in the status of the whole calculations, we know that something went wrong, but some calculation succeeded. In order to know exactly how many stocks failed to calculate, we can also include in this global status a message that would describe what happened, and also include the list of stocks, the IDs of stocks that we failed to calculate. And the same thing we can put inside each and every stock calculation. In each and every stock calculation, we can put not only the result of our predictions, but also the status, whether we calculated it fully successfully, meaning we got the result for the stock, we know everything that we want to know, or whether we had a colossal failure, this would be the status failure, or whether we had a partial success. And also we can add a message that would give a description of what happened, and later on we can push it into various services that would need to present this message. And we could also give additional details, such as how much time it took to calculate this stock, so that when we get the result of all the calculation of all the stocks, we know fully success, partial success, failure. We get the messages. We know how much time it took to calculate each of them, and we don't need to go to any dashboard or any logs, because this is part of the business logic of our application. Sometimes we forget that some of the business logic is not just doing the core thing that was defined by the product, but also to get a status, whether we have actually succeeded in the mission or not, whether we have partially succeeded or not. So this was how to incorporate statuses and messages in various calculations.